and welcome to LMU Roundtable Now. It's a show where we talk about issues on campus and the people who are the most reflected in these issues, the LMU student body. My name is Brandon McNeil. I'm a third-year sociology major. I don't have my glasses today, but I can still see that we're going to have a great show. So now let's introduce our panel of experts. Okay, on the right he's a business finance major. He's a sophomore with a minor in guitar, and his name is John Thomas Landen. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks.
And on the right, on the left, my right hand, we have a junior. He's a library science major, and his name is James Fox. Welcome to the show, James.
It's great to be at the table.
Great. All right. So some of you may have noticed that we've taken the show out on the road, and by that I mean that we've taken a trip down the information superhighway. You can now join the LMU Roundtable Now group on Facebook, but I should mention that if you go to the group, it was misspelled when the group was started by JT, so actually the group is called LMU Roundtable Now without a D. So John, what happened?
It was just a simple typo. I was just really excited to get feedback from the community, and I must have missed it. And honestly, I didn't notice it for a while because when you say it out loud, you hardly even notice the lack of the D.
Okay, so at this point, there's several options. We could either start a new group and rename it correctly with the D, or we can keep going with the current group, and everyone can just accept the mistake and forgive JT for making it. So if you want to weigh in on this subject, you can send us an email at lmuroundtablenow with a D at gmail.com.
You could also change the name of the program to LMU Roundtable Now, since I know you can't change the name of the group on Facebook because it won't let you, but I think the school would let you change the name of the show.
It's really hard to do the graphic again, but I think we could maybe, if anyone's watching and you know how anything about title programs on computers, maybe you can help us. Okay, so let's get into the debate. This week's show is about philanthropy. As college students, we're very privileged to be able to go here, and it's our duty to help those people who are less privileged. And there's lately been a lot of events on campus that have philanthropic reasons. So do you guys think that there's enough of those, or that we could be doing more, or should we be doing less?
One of the things that sets our campus apart from many of the others is that it's a female-dominated campus. It's like 70% female or something, and I think that we maybe could use that to advantage, people less fortunate. Maybe, women could use their female talents to help raise money for people, less fortunate.
Well, I think first we need to think about what it is people like about or want from girls that we could use to draw people to contribute to charities and to give to ultimately the homeless. And I think one thing that people like getting from girls is dates. And so maybe there's a way we could get people to think they're paying for a date with a girl, but actually the money goes to a homeless person.
All right, but in that case, if you're lying to people and telling them that money's going somewhere where it isn't, then that's just lies, and it's starting the lie cycle over again. Like maybe people became homeless because some of them were promised that they would get houses or jobs, and that whoever told them that was just lying.
In this case, you have to sort of ask yourself the metaphysical question, do the ends justify the means? Is it better that somebody is gang beaten or gang raped even in the streets on a semi-nightly basis, or maybe a few small white lies are made about some fun dates?
Well, I've always had a problem with that phrase because the word ends is just so definite. And what if we're talking about trends that keep going and going until the end of time?
Well, I think you have to look at ends in like the sense of eternity, and eternity that exists outside of time.
I think personally that the phrase should be changed to the goals justify the means, because it's how we're going about solving this problem. It's not some kind of end that we're looking at, because there will always be homeless people and there will always be giving. So how are we going to help the homeless?
All right, well, most students at LMU can't really say what it's like to be homeless because they've always come from homes. But one student does know what it's like to be homeless, and that's our very own John Thomas Landen. So now we present the very special report, John Thomas Landen on the Streets of Homelessness.
525,700 people sleep homeless almost every night. Hi, I'm John Thomas Landen, and this week I'm bringing you a special report about homelessness. I knew that in order to really know what it was like, I would have to go undercover and fully disguise myself so that I would be unrecognizable. When you're homeless, you don't have the usual means to communicate, like text messaging or private messaging if you're on a discussion board. So you have to use more primitive means, like cardboard. Oh, here we go. Here's a nice sized box. When you're homeless, you have to resort to desperate measures, and I was reduced to stealing this marker. And with it, I'll be able to write a message clearly telling the non-homeless people how they can help me, the homeless person. It's so hard. I already know what it feels like to be ignored and disliked. I can feel people hating me with their eyes when they walk past. They read my sign and think, oh, that's an undesirable, someone from a lower class. Shoo, be gone with you. Why are you here? Where I can see your pain and anguish. As you can see, those people, like many of the people I've come across, or most of them really, are unfazed by my sign. I think that in times like this, you have to use your intellect to devise new ways to survive. One of the many joys if you're homeless is discovering natural, beautiful things. I'm not rich enough to own my own iPod, but I happened upon this window with beautiful music being sung out of it. And I, being homeless and jobless, have the time to appreciate it. So, though technically homelessness means you have no home, I have acquired this box which is large enough to act like a home. Alcohol helps pass the time. I knew that in order to really know what it was like, I would have to go undercover. So that's basically more or less how I found out what it's like to be homeless. Back to you in the studio.
Wow. Well, that was a very powerful segment. I thought it was very powerful how you put yourself at risk like that, and how you went through the garbage that was dirty.
I think also I discovered that a lot of things that didn't seem useful were suddenly useful to me.
It sort of reminds you of the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
But then, what if you're a homeless person and then you find really rich stuff that could be considered to be treasure? And then, do you think that phrase or adage still applies?
I think probably it applies more so, because then you're not just making it up to make yourself feel better. You literally are finding treasure.
Even if there are some items that could not be considered treasure to anyone, even though they are someone's trash, but there might be some animals to which they would be considered treasure. Like raccoons, for instance, often dig through trash and seem to consider to be treasure things that I would find to be of no value.
So you mean things like paper cartons that they could use as nests for their babies?
That's a very good example.
I think the big problem that I have with the way that homeless people are being treated in this country is that there are a lot of organizations that help them out. There's there's shelters for homeless people, and there's shelters also for drug addicts or battered women. But what if you're all three and you have to choose which place to go to, because no one can be in three places at once?
Maybe a way around that is if they developed like a scale, a scale, so after a thorough battering, you could check this reference and see how many bruises or cuts or broken bones you have, and it would give you a numerical value. And then you could, depending on how homeless you were, if you didn't have a cardboard box, maybe that would put you down a few notches, and then you could compare the three and say, am I more battered, more homeless, and so on. And then you could locate yourself at the appropriate house.
But I think that if we actually instituted this system, we would start seeing homeless people who had shopping carts, who had cardboard boxes and newspaper, and who weren't battered, throwing away their boxes and carts and possibly battering themselves or getting someone to batter them just so that they could reap the benefits.
Maybe somebody could be monitoring the homeless people to make sure they aren't misrepresenting how homeless they are, or how drug addicted they are, or how battered they are.
Maybe the jobless could be hired to fulfill these monitoring positions. Once they entered one of the houses, then they would be assigned a monitor buddy who would follow them on the streets and through their drug use, and make sure that they don't increase in certain ways to unfairly gain advantage of the system.
But what if someone who is homeless wants to have one of those positions, but are those jobs going to be reserved only for the jobless?
I think maybe we could hire one of the jobless people to answer that question.
Well, there's a lot of people who need help all over the world, and I know here on campus there's a group that sends people to Mexico to build houses for the needy. That's a really helpful way of giving people a little vacation, as well as letting them do some work for the people who need it.
Absolutely. In my high school did something similar, and in order to get into the honor society, you had to have so many hours doing things, and the more you did things like that, the more hours you got, and if you got into honor society, then you could get into college a lot easier.
I think while we're talking about helping people in other countries and how needy they are, there might be a way to solve both problems at once, because homeless people's problem is that they don't have homes, and people in other countries' problem is that they don't have a good country, like they live in Mexico or Uganda or something. And we already said that one man's trash is another man's treasure, but maybe we could take it to a wider level, and maybe one society's trash, like our homeless people, are another society's treasure. And if we sent our homeless people to a society like Mexico, maybe they would have extra homes.
And they probably do have a lot of extra homes, because we've been sending so many people down to build them.
Exactly.
what if, for instance, we hired people who had no jobs to help build the fence on the U.S.-Mexico border that would employ the unemployed and keep out the illegals.
And then we could just make sure that when they're at the very last stage of building this fence, they're standing on the Mexico side.
And then they would become Mexico's treasure. All right, well, that's a great place to wrap it up. So thanks for watching. And if you want to know what's going on campus, remember to pull up a seat at the table. Bye-bye, everybody.